All right, so we're going to do a new segment. We're going to repick our playoff predictions because obviously preseason expectations are full crap and things change really fast. So, and these honestly really don't even matter that much either. Even though we're going into week 8, there's really not that much here for me to feel really good about. So, I'm going to go ahead and get into mine. This is probably going to change a lot, even just this week. But I'll go ahead and start with the first round. South Florida taking on Indiana. So I have Indiana as the 5 seed, South Florida as the 12 seed. Indiana's going to win that football game if they play. Period. It should be an interesting game, but Indiana will definitely win. Next game I've got Georgia Tech traveling to Oxford, 9 versus 8. I think that would be a really fun game, to be honest with you. I'd love to see that. I would go to that game. I would pay $250 to go to this game. I think Ole Miss would win. It'd probably be really close. We struggle with dual threat quarterbacks. Georgia Tech's defense is just good enough. I think it'll be really close if we played. Have Ole Miss moving on. They would play Ohio State and also had Indiana when they moved on. They'd be playing Alabama. The next game, I had Notre Dame taking on Oregon and Eugene. I think Notre Dame would win this game. I feel like Notre Dame would be favored in this game if they played right now. I honestly like Notre Dame holistically more than I like Oregon, and I was all over Oregon last week. I had them beating Indiana. I felt really good about them, but after seeing what a good defense did at Oregon, there's a lot of young guys on that Oregon team. They just need more time to develop. They're a great team with a lot of talent, but I'm just not as high on them after seeing them play against a solid Indiana defense. So I think Notre Dame's more balanced and needs it badly, and I think they would win that game. Moving on, they would play Texas Tech. Next game I've got, I would love to see this. Tennessee traveling to College Station to play Texas A&M in the first round. I have A&M winning this game slightly, take on Miami, but I also see a scenario where Tennessee could probably win. Tennessee's schedule is more favorable. That's why I got them in at the 10 seed. I think that right now, with one loss, if they could beat Alabama, this is a really favorable spot for them to get in. So the quarterfinals, Indiana playing Alabama. I would probably take Alabama in a slight lean in this game, but not by much. They would go on to play Ohio State in the semifinals. I have Ohio State beating Ole Miss in the quarterfinals. I just don't think Ole Miss can compete with Ohio State. No matter how you slice it, whenever they play in the playoffs, if they did, I just don't think Ole Miss has a chance in that game. It wouldn't be a blowout, but there's just not a scenario where I see us winning that game. Then I had Notre Dame taking on Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech might be a better team. Not sure just yet, but they have not lost the, or obviously haven't lost the game yet, but all of their games have been double digits up to this point. So until they play a close game or lose one, I'm going to keep rolling with the Red Raiders. I think they would win this game. I have Miami beating Texas A&M in the quarterfinals to move on. They would play Texas Tech. I believe that this game would be really interesting. I have Miami winning that game, though. They've looked like one of the most dominant teams. Texas Tech, Ohio State, and Miami have been the most dominant teams in college football. But I just think Miami's got a better defensive front to me. Texas Tech's really solid there, but I really like what Miami's got going on. I think they would win that game. To move on, Ohio State would play Alabama in the semifinals. Would be a really neat game. I would love to see another rematch of them in the playoffs. I think Ohio State would win defensively. They've just got more talent, and they've so far put together one of the best defensive performances we've seen through 6 games out of anybody in college football in a while. My national championship would be Ohio State against Miami. I think I'm going to take Ohio State to repeat. I just like what they're doing offensively and defensively. I think Miami's got a couple more susceptible parts on their team, possibly in the secondary. I think there's some play there for Ohio State to expose. I think Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Inus. I think they would have a really great game with Julian Sand against Miami. But at the end of the day, it would be really close in my eyes. So that's my playoff predictions. Landon, what you got?
All right, so my 12-5 game is USF versus Indiana as well. I also have Indiana winning this one. My 8-9 game is Tennessee hosting Utah. I have Tennessee getting by Utah here. And my 6 versus 11, I have Georgia hosting Notre Dame. Georgia gets revenge against Notre Dame and moves on. And then A&M host Oregon. And I have A&M beating Oregon here. So quarterfinals 4 versus 5, Alabama versus Indiana. I have Indiana beating Alabama, advancing to the semifinals. In my other game, 1 versus 8, I have Ohio State versus Tennessee. I have Ohio State beating them again in the playoffs for the second year in a row. Next game, I have Miami versus Georgia. I have Miami beating Georgia in this one. And then I have an in-state battle in the 2 versus 7, Texas Tech versus Texas A&M. And I have Texas Tech beating Texas A&M here to advance to the semis. So the 1 versus 5 here in semifinals, Indiana versus Ohio State. I have Indiana getting revenge on Ohio State from the Big Ten championship loss and advancing to the national championship. And then Miami versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech beats them. And we get an Indiana Texas Tech national championship. Indiana beats Texas Tech, win the national
Dude,
championship.
I wish this could
Would
happen.
be the greatest national
So
championship
all of your
ever.
matchups are epic. That's what I like
This
about
would be
this
the
playoff.
greatest playoff of all
I
time.
think the only other matchup I would love to see in the playoff would be like LSU and Notre Dame playing each other, and Brian
I
Kelly,
had that in the
yeah,
preseason.
and
Yeah.
Brian Kelly getting his butt
Oh
whooped
yeah.
by Marcus Freeman. That would be so funny. But Texas Tech playing Texas A&M would be so fun. Miami, Carson Beck taking on Georgia would be epic. And then Kurt Signetti beating Ohio State. Oh my! And Alabama, dude. That
That would
that
be
Indiana team would
amazing.
go down in history, bro. That would be
Um,
so awesome. Holy cow, man. I mean, there's just so many good opportunities. Unfortunately for me, I think that a team like Ohio State will probably end up winning the Natty.
Probably, but this is a new era. Like we've only been in this transfer portal era for a few years now, and we don't know what can happen.
Man, I selfishly I hope that your prediction comes true because I just want to see all that happen. If Ole Miss could find itself in the mix in one of those really interesting matchups, that would be great too. But I see us possibly having a letdown here soon. But for now, I've got us still in the playoffs. So that's I really like this segment, not because this is all going to come true, but because the possibilities are kind of endless right now. We have no idea what's going to happen. Like we're into the meat of the college football season, and there's so many big games left to be played, and we're finding out so much about all these different teams that are just popping up out of nowhere. Like USF has a chance to be in the playoff this year. No one was saying that in preseason. Indiana, they were here last year. This is familiar territory, but they look like they're better. So there's no telling what can happen there. I had Georgia Tech as a dark horse to make it to the playoff. They're undefeated. Kind of fraudulent, but they're still undefeated. And then you've got teams like Texas A&M that are defeating the narrative that they could go 8-4 again, which up to this point is not out of the question. They in 2016, I'm pretty sure they ended up having a letdown after making the
They were
initial
7-1, and then Nick Fitzgerald had a word.
Oh man, yeah. Mississippi State's. Do they still play A&M?
We already lost to them.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Sorry, I did that. Mississippi State to win that game. Holy cow. There's a lot going on, and I really hope that some of these matchups happen. I would love to see it. You picked some really cool
it'd
matchups,
be a
so
great playoff.
we'll revisit this when the playoff selection rolls back around, and we'll see where we line up.